Welcome to the Millennial Method podcast, where I dive into the personal stories of millennials that have decided to chase their dreams, overcome challenges, and redefine success in this pivotal era. I'm your host, Marky, and my guest for today is Dominic Minogue. He is the founder of Dirty Water, which is a hard seltzer beverage based out of New York. He brands Dirty Water as this middle ground of utilitarian value of a light beer and a health-forward nature of a hard seltzer. This was such a fun episode. We got to talk about all sorts of things, but obviously a lot of Dirty Water, which I'm sure you guys are all curious about the name. So we talk about the origin stories of that, as well as his own founder story. We talked a lot about what it's like to step into the ring of the beverage industry and what it's like to create a product for himself. We also got to talk a lot about his TikTok project, which if you're on TikTok, I know you've probably seen. It's kind of like this GoPro POV style of making food videos. We'll link it in the show notes so you guys can check it out. Dom is my best friend's brother, David, and I got to interview David in the first episode of this podcast. So kind of a fun little detail there. But it was great getting to catch up with Dom, and make sure to look for Dirty Water in 2024. And so without further ado, here is Dominic Minogue. Dom, what's up, brother?
What's up, man? How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks for copping on. You know, you are my best friend's brother, David.
That's true.
Who is also the first guest on the pod. So this is exciting. And I got to shoot you in Sindel's wedding, and you guys got to show us a good time. So really appreciate you for not only showing us that, but having this talk, because we have an exciting product.
We do, yes. But first,
what is
thanks for shooting my wedding. It was an amazing wedding. So, if you need a wedding, guys, FJM Studios. But yeah, no, today I definitely want to show off my new product, which is Dirty Water Hard Seltzer. It is a hard seltzer for any occasion. And, I thought it would be fun to do maybe a micro pitch and then taste it out. What do you think?
Let's do it. Yeah, give me the 30th floor elevator pitch.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's gonna be a long elevator. So
okay.
let's run it down. But so Dirty Water Hard Seltzer. It's basically what I want it to be is like the cool dive bar hard seltzer, right? And what does that mean in terms of like just the hard seltzer space? So the way that I'm coming from is the way that I see hard seltzers now. You have White Claw, Truly, a lot of great hard seltzers out there with a lot of amazing flavors. But I'm more of like a simple guy, right? So the way that I see these hard seltzer guys coming is making a lot of hard seltzer flavors and sort of like a shotgun approach, right? Not to discredit anybody, but that's the way I see it. White Claw has 33 flavors to date. Truly has 40 flavors. All of your more artisanal ones, maybe like Nectar, Happy Dad, they are making more flavors than their initial 4. And the way I see it is like they're trying to capture market share by saying, hey, I have this flavor for you. Do you like it or not? Come try it. If not, I have this other flavor for you, right? And the way that I see it building is you're building consumers that are treating hard seltzers the way that you would treat like cocktails at a cocktail bar, right? You're going to dip around, say, oh, this sounds interesting. Let me try it. But then you're not going to be necessarily trying just White Claw's 33 flavors. You might say, oh, I like Truly, or Truly's lemonade sound interesting. Nectar's Asian-inspired flavors sound interesting. And so you're bouncing around, and you're not actually creating any sort of brand loyalty. Hard seltzers are also a little bit kind of expensive for what they are. So industry secret, hard seltzers are cheaper to produce in mass than your light beers. So, White Claw came in at a certain price point, and everyone else started following suit. And with that, with these two things of flavor overload and then a little bit of a pricier product, the way that I see it is there's just not as much brand loyalty in this space. And so what I really want to do is kind of come in and create that dive bar hard seltzer. So the drink that, you go in is reliable, sort of like your Miller High Life, your PBR, your Modelo. You see it and you know it's going to be reliable every time. You can go into a bar and they're going to have it every time. And so, something that the way that a light beer can be treated for any occasion, right? You could sip it, you could have it with dinner, you could chug it, you could shotgun it, right? You could use it for pre-gaming, you could use it for like the last drink of the night. And the best thing is you could drink a lot of them over time, right? And so with that, having this one amazing flavor, I'm able to have just really fast unit economics and just better unit economics. I don't have to worry about selling out all 4 of my flavors. I could just focus on one and focus on growing that and passing those savings on to both the customer and the bar. So with the mixture and the combination of both one flavor, one great flavor, I'll say, and then just a lower cost, I'm able to have this more clear brand identity where you can go into a bar and say, hey, let me get a dirty water, rather than saying, oh, what hard seltzer flavors do you have? Oh, I like White Claw. Oh, you have that White Claw flavor? I don't like that White Claw flavor. What else do you have? Oh, you have Bud Light Black Cherry. I like White Claw's Black Cherry, so I'll take that, right? So really just going in and kind of saying, just the way you would say, hey, let me get a PBR. Hey, let me get a dirty water. Same thing every time.
I'm sold. Take my money.
Yeah. So what is it? It's just one flavor, and it's a little bit of like a pear citrus flavor. And we could talk about, why I landed on that flavor specifically, but it's a clean, light, refreshing flavor. And because it is still a hard seltzer, it has a lot of the health benefits and I'm not gonna say benefits, but health properties of a hard seltzer compared to a light beer, right? So kind of low calories, so mine's 90 calories, mine's 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, fat-free, and low sodium. And so all of these do make sort of a nice, healthy alcoholic product.
And we'll definitely dive into the product more for sure. But let's go back to the taste because we have one right here.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're gonna do a live tasting.
All of this is talk, but all this sounds great on paper, but it means nothing without a great product. So I think this is a good time for us to taste it and see what it tastes like.
I'm stoked, man.
Yeah.
David and Aaron, my business partners, already had a taste, so we gotta pop one open for the boys.
All right, so
All
crack
right,
it
brother,
open.
I'm gonna open this. Yep.
Yeah, let me get it to the mic. Nice cracking sound.
Oh, yep. Some ASMR.
Yep, and then shall we cheers?
Cheers, my guy.
Cheers, man.
Oh, wow. Right away, I definitely know it's a hard seltzer, right? But it's not like flavor forward. Not super strong on that sense, like you were saying. Wow. A little bit of pear in there?
Yep.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep. You should
get a
you should
second
kind of
sip.
taste that initial sort of pear note, but I'll let you kind of dissect it a little bit more. Kind of.
Okay.
Like you said, it tastes like a hard seltzer. Anything else you think?
Yeah. Let me get some words. Let me take a couple more sips.
Yeah. Ruminate on it. Take big sips. Take small sips. Play around with it.
Okay. Let me try again. I'm not the best at describing flavors, so I'm going to try my best to give you some stuff.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And not even just flavors, like kind of like what does it feel like? Like does it?
Yeah, the experience.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, when I think about like a White Claw, and I match that up with this is way easier to drink. Because sometimes I'll drink a White Claw, and when I think about my experiences about drinking White Claws, it's always just to pregame hard and have like something that's super strong in the flavor. This is one of those where it's like, we're chilling at a tailgate, talking with some friends, some homies, and they don't want a beer, but they also don't want like a White Claw. This is that little middle ground, and so easy. I like to describe it as like easy to drink. So let me try again.
For sure. And so the flavors you should be getting, so that easy to drink sort of sense. The way I describe the flavor is you get like this initial, especially by scent, both by scent and by flavor, you're getting this initial like punch of flavor, right? It's like you could taste the pear, right? It tastes like pear.
Yeah, it's apparent.
But the second you kind of like bring it away from your nose and just away from your mouth, the flavor kind of goes away completely, right? And so that easy to drink aspect is just sort of like, I'm not gonna say hydration, but like just like you are just drinking like a liquid, like a seltzer itself, not even necessarily a hard seltzer.
Yeah. Do you know if like White Claw and all those other seltzers that are more flavor forward, do they use like syrups, or do you happen to know what their like ingredients are in there?
Not
Why it's
specifically.
so strong?
I mean, one thing is, so in my, my journey to get to this flavor, there were iterations that were stronger, and it's because of how much, of that flavor you use. But they do want to be flavor forward for a reason, right? They are aiming at to be like a fruitier, more flavor forward beverage. And the way that I see it though, like I do love White Claws. I love, everything hard seltzer. But when I drink a lot over the course of a night, it becomes tough. It becomes like tart, like, like kind of back here, where like it becomes tougher to sip over time, right? Especially like if you're like a couple shots and like a bunch of hard seltzers deep, it's tough to drink, right? I want my beverage to be the one where like you could have this as your single, what they call session drink, as in your entire session of the night can just be this, and you can, continue to drink just this product. So that's why I wanted it where you could taste it. There is flavor, but it's not focused on the flavor, but more of the drinkability. that is sort of, that non-lingering taste you would normally get after many drinks, not even just hard seltzers, but like say ciders or cocktails that like, that residual flavor that usually stays. This shouldn't necessarily have that.
What have you seen, like, in terms of the flavor? What has this paired really well with other drinks?
So I've been experimenting a lot. I've been experimenting with this with both alcoholic pairings and then non-alcoholic pairings. I think from an alcoholic perspective, you could use this as a soda replacement for like many beverages. So like, your vodka sodas, mezcal sodas, tequila sodas. And this is a nice replacement that gives you like a little bit more of a punch. But, in practicality, you're not going to order a vodka dirty water at a bar because that's 2 alcoholic beverages and you have to pay for the cost of both, right? So what I think is very interesting is, say you're going to a bar and like maybe you do want something that's a little bit more flavor forward. You can get your dirty water, which again still has that very light, easy approachable flavor, but then maybe ask for a splash of cranberry or a splash of pineapple, right? Or like a little bit of grenadine in it, and getting a little bit more flavor in there. That's a little bit more fun. And then, maybe ask for a shot of whiskey on the side. And then you have your nice drink plus your alcoholic chaser.
Got it. Okay. No, I could totally see that. So you see it kind of living on its own, not as a drink that you would buy separately. Or like 2 drinks you would buy once at a bar.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm not going to shy away from that. Like, if I can get this as a draft eventually, where like, you can kind of be able to break it open, then we could kind of have fun with anything, right? You could say, oh, let me get a vodka dirty water and then kind of mix that. The same way you would do maybe, have you ever had like a Blue Moon with a shot of like, I think it's like Grand Marnier or something, or like a hard cider with a shot of Fireball, like stuff like that. Like you could do those combo drinks, which I think could be really fun with the dirty water.
Aaron described this when we had it last time. It's like it was the Blue Moon, but with like a few oranges in there already.
Yeah. I like that.
Going back to the bars and where you see this going, like how does this flavor resonate with you?
Yeah, so I did want it to be my drink where I could just drink it anywhere. Like that's what I wanted. This is sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy where like I want to be able to have this whenever I want it, whether it's at home, drinking it with dinner after like a tough day's work, or going to a bar and being able to drink it with friends. Right? I want to be able to have this at those different places because for me, I'm 9 times out of 10 a simple guy. I do like my cocktails sometimes, but even then I still kind of, gravitate more towards, let's say like a whiskey highball or like something like a Modelo or a beer like that. So, something that's a little more simple, maybe a beer shot. I want to be able to have it. And so this, one of the main focuses is being able to have this at like a low price point to be that beer shot equivalent for a hard seltzer. Because right now, if you go to a dive bar and you want that beer shot combo, usually the hard seltzer is not included in that list of beers that you can have. But I want this to be that staple. Oh, let me get a dirty water and whiskey. Let me get a dirty water tequila, right? And you have that like sort of that pairing at these dive bar locations.
And so when you think about like those type of pairings and your own experience with those type of drinks, how does this tie with your pitch that you described earlier?
Yeah. So the way I see it is, this is the drink, and I probably said it before, but like for anywhere, any location, right? So being able to go into a bar and say, hey, I know it's tough to carry hard seltzers because you need to know what to choose, right? So if you go to a place and ask them, oh, what White Claws like they have, they're going to say maybe 2, usually 1, but maybe 2 or 3. They're not going to have, the wide 33 flavor selection that just White Claw offers, right? So being able to go in and say, this is the only flavor you have to carry of mine. And it's a hard seltzer. People love hard seltzers. And this is a great tasting product, in my opinion. It's sort of like that no-brainer of being able to go in and ask for that. And then inversely, right, as I mentioned, so one of the things that hard seltzers are tough with is those variety packs. Say you usually buy a variety pack, and 9 times out of 10, if you're going to get a variety pack for home, you're not going to like 1 or 2 flavors, right? That's just the way it is. Or you're going to prefer other ones over some.
That's true.
Yeah, and so like with that, most people are buying these hard seltzer packs for parties, right? They're going to go to a party, they're going to bring this because it's like their variety pack, and they know someone's going to drink one of them, right? But people aren't buying them as much for home or for like home purposes because they don't want to be stuck with flavors they're not going to drink. So being able to buy this and have this and say, oh, I can get a 12 pack of dirty water and it's going to be the same. It's like buying a 6-pack of beer or a 12 pack of beer, or even, as much as like an 18 or 30 pack, right? Because you know what you're getting, you're going to like it every single time. And you can have it both now at home, you can bring it to parties as like your session drink. So like having it for beer pong, having it for your party games, or even shotgunning. I'm not condoning excessive drinking, but it's available for these different like situations. So that's my goal, is just to be able to be that sort of, again, that utilitarian drink that you do see with, again, your PBRs, High Lifes, Bud Lights, Modelo's, anything like that.
It's very comforting, right? Like when you think about, you get off a day of work, you know what you want to get.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, fuck, I just want to get a dirty water. Just drink something real quick.
And that's actually kind of how it started too. So kind of going backwards a little bit, right? Like the reason why, or like what I wanted. So this is back in like 2018. I was working at a startup back in San Francisco. So I was there, and my wife, well, my girlfriend at the time, not my wife, she was living in East Coast. I was West Coast, and so didn't have much to do. So I would, grind it out 12 plus hours a day, come home, and then pop open a Bud Light. Like that was my daily routine. But at this time, I was actually drinking more vodka sodas at bars. And so I wanted, just because I wasn't like being as physically active at the time, I wanted like a more healthy option. And again, this was back in 2018. And so I started doing some research, and I saw things like Cutwater, right, which are vodka soda in a can, but they were priced at like a 6-pack for $15, $16. And I was trying to be cost effective because I was saving for a ring, right, and a few other things, right? And so, nice. I didn't want to spend
method.
So for me, right, I was like, I just wanted to drink, because you get that serotonin like out of like opening a can, and like I'm not going to pay $2.50 for every time I want to drink like whatever it is. So I was like, I wasn't even thinking of making a hard seltzer or even anything at the time. I was just thinking like, I wish there was something like this in the market. Lo and behold, my friend introduced me to White Claw. And from there I was like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted. And so I just started drinking White Claws, Trulies, and then, the Nectars, Happy Dads, Topo Chicos. There's just so many different hard seltzers. And I was like, oh, this is great. Fast forward maybe like 3-4 years, my original ethos of something that's reliable, cheap, that you can bring home every time still wasn't there in the market, right? And I think that there's like low cost component that was missing, but again, that reliability, because I myself buy 12 packs of White Claw for home because the flavors that I don't like, my wife likes, thankfully, right? So like I'm able to get, the flavor 1-pack, flavor 2-pack from White Claw, but if I didn't have that, it would be tough for me to buy because I'm not going to drink the lemon limes. Right? I'm not going to drink like some of the other ones. So, for me, again, as I mentioned, like the self-fulfilling prophecy, like this is so I can drink it for myself. And being able to have something where I can get a 12-pack and say, okay, every single time I want a hard seltzer, I'm drinking my dirty water.
Oh, nice. Cool. Well, speaking of, I have another one here. Dom was nice to give me 2. Let me finish my first one first. But, I wanted to talk about, you gave us a little bit of background of your kind of like your origin story and yourself, which we'll talk about later on as we go into the podcast. But I mean, we didn't even get to talk about the dirty water name. Let's talk about that. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty fun, maybe not fun story, but it's a story. And so back in college, so I went to a few different colleges, but my first college, Manhattan College, which is in the Bronx, me and the boys, we would drink Natural Light or Natty Light. So for those of you not familiar with Natty Light, it's just a very low cost beer. I think then at the time a 30 rack was like $18, $19. And so we would drink that.
That's pretty good.
What we would also do is we would drink, so there was a vodka called Popov. It's basically a $7 plastic handle of vodka. So like you get however many shots. And what we would do is on a weeknight, we would take a Natty Light and pour a shot of Popov in the Natural Light. And we would call those dirty beers. And so we would drink those pretty regularly. We would do them in funnels. We would do them like all the crazy stuff. But, it was our way of getting drunk at an effective cost point. And so that sort of name, dirty beer, stuck with it. Dirty water eventually became a thing. I've later learned in life that in Boston, they named their river the Dirty Water River, I think. And then I think they call their beers at ball games, dirty waters. So you have that little play there. And then I'm a New Yorker at heart. Well, I live in New York. I like to pride myself as being a true New Yorker. You know what I mean?
Over you.
But, the hot dogs, the water, they call it dirty water dogs, right? And so it has that little tie-in of New York too. But in reality, all it was is just a riff off of a stupid college drink that we had.
I was gonna say, like, water in New York, it's known for that, right? Like, that's what makes the pizza good.
Yeah,
Makes
it's
the hot
like it's good
dogs,
water. Yeah.
right?
So I follow this water sommelier on TikTok, and he says that the New York water is good, and it's in the pipes. I also saw a TikTok that they said that there's little tiny shrimp in the water. Have you seen this?
No, I have not. But we'll
I'll
link
send
it
you
in the
video.
show notes. Yeah, please.
But there's like little tiny shrimps, like microscopic shrimps that live in the water. So I don't know if people with shrimp allergies cannot drink the water, but I thought that was a very interesting fact that there's like living organisms in our water.
Maybe that's why it's so good.
Yeah, it's already has all the umami from the shrimp already in the water.
That's a fun fact. Yeah, please send me that.
I got you.
Thinking about those stories that you just shared with me, what was the aha moment for this project?
So I guess there's like, different aha moments, right? The aha moment of I'm going to do it. The aha moment of like, a flavor, right? And then an aha moment of I think I could make this go somewhere, right? So you have those like little like kind of stepping stones.
Yeah.
But between each aha moment,
Milestones.
it's just moments of sadness and despair, right? But you live for these aha moments, right? And which is nice. But so the first aha moment was, again, I think, being that multi-year later after thinking about wanting just like at that time, I wanted canned vodka sodas that were cheap, right? Long story short, there's still not a product that is like a simple flavor that I could drink and, being that everyday sort of hard seltzer, there's still not that thing there. And, one of the first things you do as like a startup entrepreneur is you Google the name, you Google the product itself,
Sure,
and you see if there's
sure.
any like competition out there, and there just wasn't, right? And I thought that was like, okay, I'm onto something. Started talking to people about the product, the idea. No one said it was a bad idea, right? And so like, I think the hardest thing was obviously the execution, right? Which came next, which was discovering what kind of flavor it was. And so that was tough because the way that usually hard seltzer businesses come up with flavors, so say like your White Claw and you say, I want to create a passion fruit flavor. What you're going to do is you're going to create a brief and you're going to send it to what they call flavor houses. Flavor houses, they just focus on creating like flavors for you in a lab. They mix formulas and they send you samples. And so, a White Claw or something like Big Brand, they can send their brief to 10 different flavor houses, get 10 different results, see which 2 or 3 are like the closest to their vision, and then get rounds with them. But me as like a startup guy, I only had one shot on goal, right? Like I couldn't send mine to like 10 different, businesses because I just don't have the funds for that, right? So
bootstrapped.
So I had to really ruminate and be in the think tank on like, okay, well, what do I want my brief to be? I had like a little back and forth with them on like the vision, but literally my vision was like something that tastes like something that tastes like nothing, something that like is sweet but not sweet. So it's like, what the fuck am I supposed to, as like the flavor house, like I am getting nothing from these notes. Like I need more feedback, right? And so I had to think myself on what I wanted this flavor to be, right? And so when I was thinking about it more, it's like, okay, well, do I want to taste like a beer? Do I want to taste like a seltzer? Do I want it to taste like something else? And actually, my initial thing that I started telling people about was, so V1 Dirty Water brand concept was, people pride themselves on liking shit tasting things. And again, going back to Natty Lights, you have, what was it, Steel Reserve, which is like a malt liquor that's like pretty tough to taste, but like as a college kid, right? You're like, oh, it's cheap and I like the flavor of it because, I drink it so much and like it's become accustomed to me. So people kind of like pride themselves on these sorts of things, ripping shots of like well vodka, stuff like that. So I was like, oh, if I just focused on getting the cheapest product and then putting it out there, even if it tasted like shit, people had to buy it. Like, and that was my initial concept. But as I was kind of going through it more and more, I realized that just wasn't me. And I wouldn't be happy if I I wouldn't like send every single person I know these samples if I wasn't confident in like the flavor of the product, right? And so that started like, leaning on, like, it's kind of like marinating with me. And then eventually I was like, okay, I actually have to buckle down and find a flavor that actually works. And so, I have a list of like different flavors itself, like, even as simple as apple, lemon, lime, like all these things. Like, do I want it to taste like a vodka soda at a bar? Do I want it to taste like, something else? And again, thinking about these different flavors and what they are naturally like. And then eventually I started leaning on that sort of like that pear flavor, right? And there's 1,000 different pear flavors out there. There's Asian pear, like, and even in Asian you have like Korean, Chinese, like all these other things. You have, your American pears and things like that. But
yeah, I was going to ask you talk about the pear a little bit. Why the pear?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, right, like pear itself is, what I describe as like, it's sweet, right? Because it's still a fruit. So it's going to have those naturally sweet components to it, which you kind of need for like any sort of like fruity or like even like hard seltzer beverage. But I didn't want it to be like overtly sweet, right? So if you think of any sort of cherry flavored seltzer or any sort of, even like passion fruit is, no matter how little amount of passion fruit you put in, it's going to taste like, like strong passion fruit. Or like even like passion fruit.
I love passion fruit, by the way.
Like that. Oh yeah, no, I like passion fruit too, but it's just like, it's a really strong in your face flavor.
Sure.
Where like, if you have like a slice of a pear or like, so anything like that, there's like non-alcoholic pear drinks. If they aren't added sugar, like it does kind of taste just very mild, right? It tastes like a more mild apple.
That's true, yeah.
And so that's kind of the reason why I landed on pear. And then I needed something to balance it out. I had my initial flavors were like just pear by itself. And then so I added in like a little citrus to sort of kind of give it like a little bit more complexity.
What is there like when you were doing your initial research? I want to open another drink, by the way.
Yeah.
But
see how easy it is to drink? This guy
it's
just
crazy.
drank a whole can casually.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah, when just chatting. So, yeah, the drinkability is there.
You guys heard it first. This is a live podcast. So 2 drinks in, 30 minutes.
There you go.
But when you were doing your initial research, like what were some of the most flavor forward flavors that you found, like fruity flavors?
Oh yeah, like so that? I worked a little bit with like some like food scientists, just asking them about like, flavors because like it's interesting when you add, so not only just alcohol, but so there's 2 ways to make hard seltzer. There's your spirit-based, which is basically like vodka, tequila, whatever it is. Like you've had High Noons, things like that.
Yes.
So those are spirit-based hard seltzers, and it's basically just spirit plus seltzer. The other way to do it, which is like White Claws, Trulies, Nectars, like 9 out of 10 hard seltzers, it's sugar brew base, which is basically just malted sugar or fermented sugar, like whatever it is. And that is in itself is a very distinct flavor. Granted, sugar base or sugar brew can taste wildly different depending on the manufacturer, like the kind of sugar, like whatever it is. But that by itself has very unique flavors that can change the flavor profile of what you're like attacking, right? So like say you want like a lemon flavored thing and then you put sugar base in it and it may taste something completely different, right? And so I had to kind of be cognizant of that. Granted, I didn't really know anything about it. I was like, okay, well, we could like, make this not taste like that, right? And they're like, well, yes and no. Like there's different things to it. So I was just, part of it was honestly just closing my eyes and hoping the pear thing worked.
Trusting yourself.
Yeah, just like, not even trusting myself. I was just like, let's see what happens. I was like, I just need to get something in my hand and then just start like kind of like, so I got my first sample, which was just pear by itself. And my initial brief was like, I don't want it too sweet. Like that's it. Like just like not a sweet pear. This thing tasted so sweet. I still have a V1 of it somewhere. I don't know where it is. But it just tasted so sweet. It was like Kool-Aid. It just tastes like pear flavored Kool-Aid. And I was like, this is just not it. And then, back and forth, I was like, is pear even it? I was just like distraught. I'm like, I wasted so much money on like kind of going down this pear route. And I was like, well, what if we add like another flavor to it? And then so I at home was starting to play with like the flavor of the pears, like seltzer, and then adding in like other seltzer flavors from like different things and like adding in like my own home ingredients to like the samples they were sending me. And then this sort of like citrus blend worked, right? And it was like the parent citrus and like that kind of like came together. And I was like, okay, I think this has legs. And so a few more iterations of that. And like, you are going to be the most self-critical person of your product, right? And so I still wasn't even sure. I was like, oh, I think this tastes like something. But I was so used to the flavor of like the failures before it that like I just wasn't, I just didn't know. And so that's when my wife was like, just have other people taste it. Like you're in your own like think tank, like, tasting your things and like you're getting no outside exposure. And then when I started showing people like maybe around 6, 7, 8, and they were like, oh, this is like really good. And I was like, is it good? Like I personally didn't think it was great, but then like they were giving me that confirmation bias. I was like, oh, this is a good like product. And so from there, then I started tweaking it and kind of like changing my mindset of like what the flavor should be, like just like mentally what the flavor is to me, right? And so eventually I landed on sort of the flavor that you're drinking right now.
And I was going to say, like, how many versions before you found that flavor, and how many people did you give it to before you were okay with it?
Like 9 or 10 versions of it.
Okay.
And then maybe like total of like 15, 20 people to like, taste it, sip it, things like that. Different demographics, people who like seltzer, people who don't, all of that. But, it's interesting because I have this flavor, right?
Yeah.
And it still might not be the final flavor at the end of the day, right? Think of like Coca-Cola. They've changed their flavor, tweaked it like a little bit over time. But their mission was the same. And my mission is always going to be the same, of that single, reliable, hard seltzer that you can drink anywhere, anytime, right? And so what does that taste like? Well, right now it tastes like this. But in X amount of time, it could taste like this, but like maybe some tweaks to it. Or maybe like, some like minor adjustments. So right now, I'm content with the flavor. But, maybe with a little R&D money, like as time goes on. Right now, I'm not focusing anymore on R&D. But like, as time goes on and maybe like I start playing with other things on the side, maybe this flavor will evolve to something that's even more mass appealing.
Yeah, and we'll definitely talk about, what that looks like next year and, distribution and things like that. Mm-hmm. We've talked a lot about dirty water, but we got to talk about Dom a little bit. So,
me? Talk about me.
yeah, you, sir. I mean, you gave me kind of an insight a little bit with the college parties and stuff, but let's talk about like, your roots. You talked about NYC and like, how did you get interested in this food and bev space?
Yeah, so I think, I guess we could do like a 30-second thing of like me growing up. I grew up in a small town, actually away from like the rest of my family. I grew up predominantly adopted by white male.
This was the craziest story, by the way, when David told me.
So yeah,
but anyways, go ahead.
I was adopted. I'm not going to do the full version of it. Long story short, I grew up away from my brothers on the other side of the country in a small, predominantly white city, county, whatever you call it, just north of New York City, like maybe 20, 30 minutes away. And that's where I grew up. And yeah, and from there, then I ended up going to school in the city. I jumped around different schools a little bit, but my final school that I got a degree from was FIT, so Fashion Institute of Technology. And I got a degree there in some bullshit degree. Sorry, I've called it International Trade and Marketing.
Sure.
Yeah. I just, at this point, like I just wanted a degree to like get out. I was like, I'm not going to work for anybody. I'm just going to like do this or whatever. And so I got a degree in International Trade and Marketing, which was basically a marketing branding degree with like import-export sort of like tariff stuff. So it was like half like government, half like conceptual like brand strategy, which was cool. Like I learned a lot from it, like in terms of like how you position a brand, like a luxury brand specifically, which was very fun. But past that, I did a little bit of retail work, like just working as like a retailer. I was a stylist for a little bit. And then from there, then I just slowly got into tech. I did a few tech startups, or like co-founded some tech startups that were predominantly failures. But the way I see failures is I just learned a lot. I just wasn't emotionally and like I just wasn't mature enough to have a startup at that time. I was like in my early mid-20s, just kind of like messing around, thinking things would just come to me. But I also didn't know anything about startups, right? I just thought, a startup's just like make an app and then put it out there and then get users. And I don't know how I'm gonna get the users, but they're gonna be there, and then like all this stuff. And I was working on like kind of the hardest apps, which are called two-sided marketplaces, where you need both a consumer and like something on both sides, right? Where it's like you need So for example, Yelp would be a two-sided marketplace where you need the people or the businesses to be on it, and then you need the people to be on it. So you need
B2B and B2C at the same time.
Yeah, so you need to sell yourself to both ends. And so I worked on like maybe 3 startups in that space, and I didn't realize I was like, I'm working on like the hardest thing, and I don't know what I'm doing. And so from there, then I eventually kind of transitioned through a few different things, ended up getting a job in mobile gaming in San Francisco, so 2007, 2018.
This
And
goes
that's
back
kind
to
of-
when you were in SF.
Exactly, and so that's when I moved to SF, a little bit closer to my family, and then yeah.
Shout out to David.
Shout out to David, and then from there I ended up working at a startup. Was there for a while, and then I was like, you know what, it's time to be dirty, and then I started Dirty Water. This was like during not during the pandemic, but I moved back to New York City during the pandemic because work from home was a thing, and then I just became inspired again, and I was like, I need the entrepreneurial spirit back, so.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So were you okay? Cool. So you enjoy your drinking. You know, you have a great plate. Like, you know what you like. We're also going to talk about the Dominic project later, and food and bev. But it sounds like you had no experience going into this.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
So food and bev. So it's very happenstance on how I got to kind of where I am now. So one of my old co-founders, he ended up also going kind of back to like quote unquote working for the man, right? But he was more of what they called an EIR, which is an entrepreneur in residence. So he was basically doing a lot of like strategy building and like brand building for a big alcohol company.
Okay.
And from there he had like just a ton of connection. But I wasn't even thinking about that time. I just remembered that, oh, my old co-founder is like in the industry. So when I had this idea of like, because I wanted to go back into CPG, which is consumer produced goods.
Yes. Familiar.
Because like being in tech, I was like, this feels very superficial. Like it's like install basis, like all this stuff. Like I didn't feel like an attachment to it. I was in fashion for a while, and I didn't want to build a fashion brand from like a consumerism perspective, because you need to create like, new clothes every year, every season that like appeals to the thing. And I was like, that just sounds like a lot of work, and I don't have the vision for that. But what I thought is really cool is like a product that has repeat buyers, people coming back and back. And so I was like, oh, I would love to do something in the food and beverage space because I love eating, I love drinking, I love going out to eat. Do I want to make like a sauce, for example? Do I want to make just anything random? Like at one time I was thinking about like a chili crisp, just random things like that. But that didn't have any legs because like I was just throwing ideas out there of like I would love to build like something in the food and beverage space. But this came back to me. This stuck with me. So long story short, I was like, okay, you know what? Dirty Water I had as a name for like a very long time. I actually checked my notes app like a while ago, and I was like, oh, the first time I had the name Dirty Water was like back in 2015. Like the name was just there, like in my notes app. So, having that and then having just someone to riff ideas off of, being an old co-founder, really kind of like helped me get to where I am now, of like even any direction to start. Because I didn't have any idea of, this industry at all. There's so much red tape in the industry. There's so many so much politics, all these things you need to know. And so, it's just a lot about me not knowing what's going on, me asking what the next step is, and then me not knowing what that next step is, and then just kind of like Googling it, asking people, trying to get introductions, getting their take on it, getting the take on what's next, and, asking more and more questions about, things I had no idea about, and probably asking dumb questions, or asking questions that aren't the right way to be, asked. But I'm getting there. I'm not there completely yet. I'm still new, but I'm getting close to singularity.
When you say new, how long have you been doing this? How long has Dirty Water been a project
I incorporated Dirty Water in April 2022, I think. But before then, I was like, I had mock-ups. I was riffing the idea off of people. So I was probably thinking about it for like maybe 6 to 8 months before I said, let me get a name lockdown. And then from there, then maybe it was about 6 months before I started formulating. So like actually doing formulations. And that was just kind of like me in the think tank of like, being nervous about putting a brief out there and saying like, get me my first thing, right?
Yeah.
I thought the formulation process was going to be like a 30-day thing. Ended up being 10, 11 months. So it was pretty crazy. That was another learning learning experience. It was just like that kind of back and forth for however many times. But yeah, so 10, 11 months formulating and then getting my pilot run out. So a pilot's basically a run of cans like this that are not for sale and that you can give out as samples to potential investors, friends and family, like Mark over here.
Yeah. Cheers, by the way. I'm on my
Cheers.
second one.
There we go. I can't get too high on my own supply or I'd have a second one too. So I'm like, I'm just sipping it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
But yeah, so then I have these like sample rounds, and then from here, I'm just kind of like working on getting a what they call a co-packer, a co-manufacturer, and so it's kind of just talking with different potential manufacturers, talking with ingredient vendors, canners, and all these other like things that you need for the process, and talking to investors, getting potential investors involved because it's costly to get into a business like this. You need a lot of like litigation behind you. You need a lot of support, and just being a single person doing it's like kind of tough. But having a little capital behind you too does help.
Yeah, and I want to go back to, we talked about the customer a little bit, but let's expand on that. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about your target a little bit, but who's this beverage for?
So, grand scheme, the beverage should be for anyone, right? And I could talk about how it kind of leads up to there, but
sure.
You have to start small, you have to start grassroots. And so I'm going to start with two specific customer bases. Customer one, we can call like the college socialite, right? They're the people that are maybe, guys who are leading frats, maybe just like, people that are buying alcohol for other people, but the people that are really in charge of, what there is to drink at the party, right? Because, not everyone's going to go out and grab alcohol themselves. They're going to say, hey, can you grab stuff for everybody, right? And so that person, that point person is usually the one that dictates what people drink. And so, as a college student, you may not care necessarily what you drink. Obviously you care because you don't want it tasting bad, but you're not going to necessarily care at the end of the day. And so like, I want my drink to be the carefree drink, right? Where it's like, it tastes good. You're not going to hate drinking it. I hope you love drinking it, right? But it's like, it's something where it's just like, it's there and you're like not upset drinking it and you're ideally, again, happy to drink it, right? And so I want to aim at these people who are drinking it in these like larger sessions, right? So it's whether it's like a house party or like you're going out to like your college bars and then seeing this there, seeing it be that low cost option. So being friendly to, the wallets of college people and, now Gen Z and even eventually the younger generations, like at least right now, they are leaning more towards like hard seltzers, right? They do value like the health component of it, even though the price point is a little bit more premium than your like beers. Like you'll see tailgates, you'll see like, any sort of like these college events. And there's
what's crazy is I'm looking at the nutrition facts. It's like 0% everything. Was that a conscious decision?
Yeah, I mean, it just ended up being that way. So my formula is like pretty simple and clean. And so there's not like a lot of additional flavors there. So again, like 0 carbs, 0 sugar, gluten-free, which is nice. So being able to be, again, that even though like hard seltzers baseline are really just good compared to say beers or like cocktails or things like that, this, I'm proud to say, is like even a cleaner version of just a hard seltzer. So it's clean and it's tasty, which is, usually not the easiest approach. But so that's one demographic, which is the college students.
Yeah.
Working on them like at one point. But then the other demographic, which actually probably comes sooner than the college kids, is what I consider the cultural enthusiasts. So, starting in New York City first. New York City, maybe like some surrounding sort of like small hometowns. The cultural enthusiast is the one, you may call them hipsters of the past or like clout chasers, whatever you want. But the people that kind of frequent these more hip dive bars, the more hip restaurants, maybe it's like a music venue, but places that usually have like a more concise menu because the people that are there for the vibes and the environment rather than like, something that's more extensive than like a cocktail menu. Like they may like cocktails too, but they really appreciate those like that go-to drink that everyone's going to be drinking at the same time. Like guy, girl, whoever it is, they're drinking, whether it's like a PBR or something similar. It's that like go-to drink. And so I want to aim at them because I think this drink, both from a flavor perspective, branding perspective, and then from a price point, this sort of hits all the notes that they'd be comfortable with having in their hand, which is the most important thing for them.
No, yeah, that's really cool. And kind of like riffing on that a little bit. Are you truly the only one in the space? Is there another hard seltzer like yours right now?
Like mine, so Bud Light has this
Okay.
product called Bud Light Next, which is they call it like a beer seltzer. It tastes unique, and it's one flavor, right? I think that's kind of the closest thing. I don't think they're marketing it that well. And people who I've had try that and then try mine, they actually don't like sometimes Bud Light Next.
Sure.
Yeah, so, but I mean, like, I actually do like that product a lot, funny enough. But yeah, I would say that's the only thing that is in the space that's kind of like, that may be tangential, but at the same time, their branding, their approach is still very seltzer oriented, which is very like health oriented. My approach is really like, in the way that I see health, like the health space, and I could be completely wrong about this, but the way I see it is like, when thinking about health and health hacking specifically, packaging sure works at like face value. Like at a Whole Foods, you're kind of like stimulated to like think about certain packaging, right? But when you kind of go into like the depths of health, right, where it's like, oh, now you're scouring Reddits and like all these other blog posts and like podcasts about like, health hacking, they will find the healthiest alternative regardless of the packaging, right? So, hard seltzers, they have the skinny cans, bright colors, very light, like it looks like it's just a healthier product. I think as long as my product is just like a cool product, right? Like, so my logo is inspired by like old Belgian beers or like Chimay, Duvel, things like that. It has like a crest.
I was going to ask you about that. That's cool.
Yes. So the crest, usually on like these old Belgian beers, it's like a very like embellished crest with like a lot of decal, a lot of design, maybe like some sort of animal, right? But like this, I just kind of like pared it back, made it very simple. And now it's kind of like a window. And the way I describe the window is like, it's a window to the world where it's like, you can kind of add this with anything and you can see it with anything, right? That you could see anything like being in this and it could work. Whether it's like, any occasion, any additional flavor, like take different shots with it, or even like, your additional toppers, like your cranberry and pineapple and grenadine, anything like that. So it's kind of like, yeah, a blank slate is what, like the way I describe it.
Have you tried cooking with it?
I have not. I've been trying to do things that are like different scenarios. So like, drinking it warm, drinking it like when I come home from a bar, like blasted, like trying it, like drinking it then, see how it tastes. Trying it with different things. I have not.
Does it change at all? Have you tried like?
I mean, like, no one's going to love a warm beer, right?
Sure.
No one loves a warm seltzer. Like this, I'm not going to say, oh, this is amazing warm. It's not like, I would not prefer it. That's why, the logo is cold hard seltzer, not warm hard seltzer. But, it is what it is right now. I will drink it warm, but I would prefer not to.
I'm excited to see what you can. No, that's good for the audience to know. But I'm excited to know what it tastes like with food. And, I know we'll probably talk. We'll talk about Dominic going down here, but let's talk about where you are right now with Dirty Water. So what's the current status?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I am kind of like in this investment phase and locking down my manufacturer because I already have a sample. I already have a formula. That's how I know where I'm going there. But yeah, it really is just kind of the next step of once I get some funding and once I kind of know exactly what manufacturer I want to use. Because I have a price per can in mind, and I have a price per can like that's like after all the ingredients and stuff, like I have a price per can now. If I can get them like the price per can a little bit cheaper, that would be great. But I'm actually very happy with my current price per can. So if I don't find a better co-packer than what I have currently listed out, then I'm off to the races. Hopefully I can get a full run out by end of Q1, maybe early Q2, get into a couple bars in the city, and then go from there.
51 minutes and 10 seconds, everybody, if you want to know when Dirty Water's coming out. So I'll put that in the show notes.
For sure.
I want to kind of take a step back a little bit because it's been a year now, a year and a half since the project? Or no, it's been months. It's not even been a year now, huh?
Oh, what, of which project?
Of this.
Yeah, I mean, so it's been a year and a
Dirty
half.
Water.
Like it depends when you think of like inception, right? Because I started my my, I guess, formulation phase in like early September 2022. I incorporated April 2022. Was thinking about it in end of 2021, right? But it kind of depends. But yeah, since then to now, it's been a little bit, but slowly but surely. But now things are like really ramping up.
So in the past year, I mean, you really dug deep into this like industry, and you want to create something that's your own. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned in this venture?
That you know less than you think every day. Even like I had a call right before this with someone very knowledgeable within like the beverage space, and I learned a new rule that like about just like red tape with like liquor and stuff like that, and like what you can and can't do from certain like angles. And so there's a lot of nuances I've learned. I've learned that you need to just ask questions. You need legal counsel. You can't just use ChatGPT for everything.
Especially 21 plus. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you can't just use ChatGPT. You need legal counsel. Even though that ChatGPT is my first vet, and then I ask legal, I'm like, is this okay? I could do this. just to have less like hours billed.
It's quicker, yeah.
But yeah, like talk to people in the industry, like relying on, not necessarily relying, but like, just asking people, getting second opinions is very strong, right? Because like people will give you conflicting opinions, especially when you have like a pitch deck, right? Like I've learned this, like I've had multiple pitch decks from multiple startups. People say conflicting things, and people are coming from places of, of like sincere like knowledge, right? Like they're being sincere about like what they're saying, but sometimes it's conflicting, right? Between like one person who you value their opinion versus somebody else. And so at the end of the day, it's your call. Don't like, change something because one person said it, even though you can if it's like something where it's like, oh, that makes a ton of sense. I completely understand that, but like, don't just do it because one of your investors said it. Yeah, because they told you to do it, right? Because like they may not see the full vision of it. You're the only one who sees your full vision. And so that's one of the things that I've learned just from like, coming from an entrepreneurial space is like, again, I'm not saying be careful of who you get opinions from, but like absorb everything, and then see how it fits into your vision of what you want it to be. That's
great. Yeah. I think especially because I have a few people that are, I know some like just e-commerce people that are in the food and bev industry, and they need that perspective because you can market all you want, but at the same time, it's like, if you're not with legal, right? It's not going to matter. Exactly. You can't even get your product out.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, like, food and bev, everything, like branding's everything, right? And so like, people have especially when it comes to branding, people have very strong opinions. And so like, I can tell you right now, some people hate my branding. Some people love it. But,
how have you navigated that? Or you don't really care? You seem like the type that doesn't really care.
No, like I don't really care, but I want to make sure that they know that their opinion matters, right? At least for me, that's just like kind of like who I am. So like, I'm not going to say, oh, I don't care about your opinion. I'll take it. I'll say, oh, that's interesting. I can see where that fits in. But like, for me, like I have a very specific vision of like how I see this on the shelf, right? Versus like something else, something that's maybe a little bit more flashy, a little bit more modern, right? I don't want something that's necessarily like a modern looking thing. But yeah, it's fun. It's been fun. I love talking to anyone about the product, which I think is very meaningful because, here I've done a lot of startups, right? I've done a lot of startups for, for financial gain, I would say. Like I would go into these startups, like even though it's something that I thought was like a good idea, I was going into them with the main goal to like become fucking rich, right? Where it's like, oh, like I'm doing this just like financially, and then like I don't want to do this anymore because I don't like, this is not what I want to do in 10, 20 years, right? Sure. This is the first thing where I was like, I could probably care less if I make like a single dollar off of it. If I could bring this home to me every night from like a store, like I'd be so happy.
That feels good.
Right. And I think this is the first time where I'm just like, this is the thing that I want to do. But funny enough, just going through the numbers and going through like the projection, the positioning, this is like the best shot on goal that I've ever had. Which is fun to say, which is nice to say. And it's like, this being, again, how I positioned it, also how I just like really just need this product out there for myself. So,
Yeah, and it's like, this is 100% you. That's what's fun, right?
Yep, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really cool. And speaking of, let's talk about the Dominic project, because I know TikTok plays into all this. Can you
Yeah,
tell my
so
audience, if in case they don't know what that is?
so TikTok.com slash I don't know if there's like an append after that, but Dominic
Yeah.
is my TikTok. It's
Here,
a
I
riff
want
off
to
of
try something real quick. Walk me through my audience. What this is?
this is me. This is me POV. So this is a TikTok I started in the exact date of when I posted my first TikTok as Dominic, which is just a riff off of sommelier, like a wine expert. I'm not a wine expert. I'm Dom. So I'm an expert on me. I'm Dominic.
Dumley.
September 21st, 2022 is when I posted my first TikTok. I've always kind of wanted to do food content. Like I cooked, right? I'm a home cook. I'm not a chef. I just make food for me to eat for me, right? And so, but I do love cooking things. When I was in high school, I'd watch the Cooking Channel, Food Network, and it's like my ASMR, just like watching like people cook and like, there's science behind it, which is really cool. But like for me, I just like cooking and putting things together. I like eating food. I like eating out at restaurants. I like cooking at home. I like eating other people's food. I'll eat McDonald's. I'll eat, your Michelin shit. But like, I'm like the
Yeah, so
full
you're not really
range.
a snob. You just enjoy food.
Yeah, I just like eating. I just like eating food. Like I love buffets. Buffets are the best thing because you can have like a bite of everything. Like I'm someone who, if like 9 times out of 10, I can't eat a lot of one thing unless it's like something I'm just craving at the time. So a buffet, I could get like a little tiny bite of like every single thing there, and like I'm very happy about that. But yeah, so I started this, and I am not like a content creative, like just straight up. Like I'm just like not that kind of content creative person, and I get very impatient when it comes to things like editing. I get very impatient with setting
Yeah.
up a stage, like setting up equipment. Like I want sort of like a set it and forget it environment. And so when I was thinking about like content creation, like I've had videos that I've posted that are like not like this format, and my format's evolved. Like I kind of do different POVs now, but originally it was just sort of like that first person POV of like cooking. And the
Holy
reason why
shit,
I
you've done a
started with
ton
that
of
was
videos.
one a day every day for
Wow.
a year, a
Okay.
year and a half, or like a year and 2 months. I was looking for something that was like, easy and again, set it and forget it mentality, right? I did not want to have to stage and like kind of do the sauce pours and like kind of like close ups and then like, spinning things. And people create like, really interesting equipment for certain shots, right? Like
Yeah.
I saw someone, they cut a pan in half so they could put like the camera right at the same level of like the thing that's being cooked rather than
Yeah,
having it
make it
like
interesting.
point down, right? So like, there's all these things, but I am not a lighting expert. I'm not like a camera expert. I don't have patience to learn like that, even though I could probably ask my brother to like come and just like set it up for me, which is funny
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I just like I don't have the patience for that. So I want something that I could just do myself and really quick. And so one of my favorite cooks, chefs, his name's Kenji Lopez Alt. He does this POV
Yes.
thing, and he's very, very
Yeah.
educational. He's a food scientist. He like experiments, does all this stuff. Way more knowledgeable than I could ever be. But the thing that I learned the most out of anyone doing anything is not necessarily the recipe, because if you follow a recipe, you can get there, right? You can get to the flavor you want. But with a POV, you're seeing like everything else, right? You're seeing how their knives
You're
are
seeing what
stored.
you're getting.
Yeah, like how they're even like setting up their fridge, how they're like pulling ingredients from their fridge, like how they're working their way like around the kitchen, which you can't necessarily see from like these super cut videos of like people like doing like the recipes themselves, like these glorified sort of like recipe supercuts. So that's what I really resonated with, of like seeing everything else outside the recipe. And so with that, I was like, if I ever did cooking or like any sort of cooking blog, it would be that first person POV. And I'm a procrastinator at like those kind of things. Starting up something like that is so like, it's like, oh, if I do that, then I'm gonna have to do one a day, or like at least be like consistent and like, again, that
Yeah.
whole like content calendar kind of thing. But then for my birthday, which was September 20th, my wife bought me a GoPro. And I was like,
Wow,
oh,
what a gift.
I was like, I guess I have to try it now. And so my whole thought with doing this was, well, I'll do it, right? I'll try it. And if it ends up blowing up, I will use it as the vehicle to promote Dirty Water, right? I had no
yeah.
intentions of it blowing up though. I remember I did 2 videos and then like they didn't really get any views. They were like a couple hundred views.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. My third video, I guess maybe third or fourth video, it's at the bottom. I was like, at this time, there's one recipe that all my friends love. And it was...
Was it this one?
Yes.
540K?
Yeah, so it was my own interpretation of Carbone's spicy rigatoni, which is a very famous pasta from a very famous restaurant here in New York. And it took me like 3 years to kind of get it to where I was like, oh, this tastes very similar to the spicy rigatoni, and all my friends love it. And I said, if this video isn't the video that blows up, then my channel won't work. And so I remember the exact day of it happening. I was at a wedding, so I recorded it like Saturday night or whatever, and then I edited it and then went to a wedding, posted it on my way to a wedding, right? And then my friend, who happens to be like a YouTube streamer, he put me at the content creator table. Like, even though he didn't know that I was starting a channel, like he just put me at like the influencer table, and I was just like joking around with them. I was like, oh, follow me on YouTube, follow me on TikTok, blah, blah, blah. And then I opened up my thing and I saw that I went from 60 followers to 1,000 followers. And I had like, I think it was like 20K views on it. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, holy shit. And I was like, you guys are good luck. You're like, blah, 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 you know. But I did not expect that to happen. And then from there, I mean, like now I have like 167,000 followers or something like that. But yeah, it's been slow and steady. But yeah, from there I was like, okay, this could actually be something, which I did not expect at all.
That's crazy. And you were already thinking about dirty water at the time too, huh? So this was just a fun thing?
Yeah, so this was just a fun thing. Again, like I thought if this blows up by like happenstance, this will be like, I could promote it through this channel. And
amazing. Yeah. By the way, Spam and Eggs, classic.
Yeah,
Filipino.
1.1 million views for Spam
Look at that.
It's crazy, right?
Well, it's because anyone can make it, right?
I know. And so that's what I realized. Like people like very just classic recipes. I've noticed the more complex recipes I do, like less views.
It starts to perform less.
Yeah. And really there's like no real crazy rhyme or reason. People say they like mastered the TikTok formula, but like
there's no formula.
Like anything can happen. Right? Time of day, like anything happen, time of day is different. That's why I don't try and focus on too much on like when I post, because it's different every time.
More like volume.
Exactly. Like maybe one day a video did well when I posted at like 11 p.m. Like, oh, maybe I'll just post every day at 11 p.m. Doesn't work. And then I post like at another time that I think is suboptimal, and that works. And then like different intros. It's just like, you know, obviously you want to put out the best content possible, but like I try not to focus on that. I try and just focus on being able to get my message across, or like, you know, having a short, easy, digestible video.
So you probably learned a lot from doing this, like for a while. You know, what have you learned about TikTok marketing?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing you've learned, or I've learned from TikTok marketing specifically, especially when compared to like YouTube or Instagram, or like, you know, especially old Instagram where everything's like super curated, is like there is no curation, right? There is just like, you just need to be organic, right? You need to be organic, and you need to like tell your story, and like people really like the authenticity of people, right? Like they will like see through the bullshit and see like what you are. And like, I think that's really interesting. And like being able to, you know, have the janky setup and like, you know, not have best lighting and like all this stuff. Like you could still become somebody. Granted, there are people who are doing very, very well on TikTok with professional setups, professional lighting, really good cuts, really good, you know, editing. But at the same time, there are people with, you know, millions and millions of followers just being themselves, talking to a camera, right? And just like talking to their phone, right? Which is what I find so interesting, is like, and that's why sometimes I do phone POV, sometimes I do, you know, the GoPro, sometimes I'll have like a ring light, sometimes it's like me holding the camera, and so it's kind of shaky, right? Like it's just, as long as you're being authentic and telling your story, whatever it is, that's just like what matters. And granted, I'm no TikTok expert, but for me, that's what I like telling myself, because that's the easiest thing for me to do, is just be organic and not necessarily care about the bells and whistles around it.
Yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine, Johnny. He's also on TikTok as well. He does like the dance transitions. I don't know if you've ever seen him.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. Good stuff.
Yeah, and he was saying like sometimes there'd be instances where he'll post and, you know, he does this like crazy edit, doesn't get anything. And then there'll be other days where he just throws it out there and it's like millions of views. It's the craziest thing. Like the algorithm just catches it.
Yeah, like some days I'll come home and be like, oh, I have this sick idea for like this intro or something like that, right? And I'll do it. I'm super excited. I post it like what I think is a optimal time, and then it gets no views. And then I'll post a video of me just cleaning a pot from that video, and it gets like 500K in like a minute. It's just like, yo, what is this?
Oh, that's funny. How does that? Okay, so going back to this, like, how are you going to incorporate this into your business?
Right. Yes, it's tough, and this is kind of where it gets a little bit more marketing-y. Is like, how do I want to like bring it in? Because obviously I want to shill it, right? Like I want to say like, oh, you should buy it, you should try it, right? But at the same time, I still want to be organic with it. I think the most organic thing is showing people that it's a good product, right? And what can I do with that? It's like, oh, well, me drinking the product, me being proud of the product, right? I think that's the first thing. People like storytelling too. Like I followed Nectar's TikTok since they first started in like a garage, and like seen how they grow now to like, they have all these different TikTok channels that they're all doing very well. And so, but they started like very, very organically, just kind of like talking through their process. I was thinking about doing like a process talk, but like a lot of my process was just happening at home, kind of like emailing, which I thought, not the most meaningful. And I'm not going to do a how-to on, how to email, how to cold email, like all that stuff. There's so many more better resources than that. But I think, just me incorporating it into my videos, reminding people that, this is a product I love, that I would love support on in the future when it's out there. One of the first things you could do as like a supporter is ask for it at your local place. Not yet though, because it's not even available to get purchased anywhere. But, just asking for support there. I found that, TikTok is a very supportive community, right? They will buy because of things like the Keith Lee effect, right? Like if if you're genuine and supportive of something, people will just come out and support. And if it's a good product, even better, right? And so I just want to make sure that people kind of like resonate with me that this is a good product. It's an accessible product. I want it to be a product for the people. And, that hopefully over the course of many, many videos, people will kind of like start really jamming with it.
Are you planning to create a separate account for it? Are you planning to stick to this for a while?
Probably stick to this for a while. Not necessarily create like a separate thing, but maybe at one time I'll create a separate thing. Like if it's just very brand focused and I need to do like say paid ads, I'll probably want to do like a separate account. But I'm not going to do like, just managing two different accounts. Not right now. Again, going back to me being lazy when it comes to content calendars, a second account's my nightmare.
As someone that's building a podcast and doing these interviews and trying to figure out what channels to post them on, I will back you up on that. It's pretty fucking hard.
yeah, it's not easy. And respect to anyone who manages like multiple accounts, different kind of like just content related things, because every sort of content piece has its own voice, right? So like you have to do like all these different things. But yeah, props to anyone who does that.
Have you shared anything about Dirty Water on TikTok?
Yeah.
Or like any response?
Yeah, no, people like, so I did a video where when I first got my samples, I kind of like talked about it a little bit. It wasn't a huge video in terms of video engagement or like view engagement, but from a comment engagement, people really loved the idea. One of my favorite comments was like, if you like it, I know I'll like it, which I was like, oh, see, that's exactly what it was, is like, I'm building my TikTok and to create a voice of myself. And then people kind of like have learned what my voice is, the kind of stuff I like. And now, if people think that I have a taste of a very specific thing, not necessarily the most refined taste, but like, if I like certain things and they're like, oh, that person is like me, then that means I'll like it, which I think is like the coolest thing.
Yeah, you become kind of like a curator of taste.
Yeah.
Where people are like, they just trust your opinion because of the
it's like
hundreds of
theirs,
videos.
Right? Yeah. It's like similar to what they jam with. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great strategy. When you think about that, do you plan to work with any creators? Have you talked to any creators?
Yeah, what's that like? I definitely want to do a mix of like, not necessarily just like content creators and influencers, but like people who are in the field, right? People who, you could call them socialites, whatever they are, but like people who may have a presence, but they're also just like the people that are out, maybe hosting parties, that are doing these other things. Like, so I do want to do a mix of both, but right now I do want to be that kind of boots to the ground, grassroots marketing type thing. So any sort of influencer that I bring on now, it has to be like, probably like New York based, or like, someone who can be seen out and is not afraid to talk to people, right? I think that's kind of like the biggest thing, because I don't want someone who's just like a computer personality or like a, what are they called? Just like, their personalities on screen, right? But they're different in person. I wanted someone who's like me, where it's like I'm the same on screen, about the same,
Genuine.
like genuine, yeah, like, and I'm not afraid to like talk to people. I'm not like highbrow where it's like, oh, don't talk to me. I love when people come up and say hi. I'm actually still awkward. Like when people are like, yo, I love your shit. I'm just like,
Yeah.
thanks, man. I wish I just don't know what to say. So if anyone has tips on what I should say to people who approach me and say they love my stuff, you know, like I'm always weird about it because I'm like, oh, I'd love to talk more about it, but I'm like, I don't want to feel like I'm talking about myself. And like, do I just say, oh, thanks. What do you do? How's your day? Like, is that weird too? Like,
Yeah,
I
how do you
don't know.
navigate that?
Yeah, like how do I navigate that sort of like conversation? So still getting used to that, but yeah, I love talking about dirty water. That's kind of like the thing I love talking about the most right now.
So you've had people on the streets talk to you?
It's
That's
not
awesome.
it's not very, very frequent, but like, yeah, it's not that uncommon. Like once every few weeks, once a month, someone comes up to me and is like, yo, I love your stuff, man. It's like, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm like, are you being serious? Or do you just like see me on the
Are you just saying this?
Are you just saying that? Tell me you're
There's
genuine.
Yeah, can you tell me how you're genuine without saying you're genuine?
Yeah. I'm like, because half my videos are pretty bad. So, you know, like tell me for realsies. Like what do you mean?
As someone that's like created daily videos, what has been like the most outlandish comment that you've seen?
Oh, dude, the funniest thing with like TikTok comments is like, you know, the thing you're doing on TikTok is in a vacuum, right? Like they're just seeing that.
Yeah.
And people have so many just like random assumptions. I can't think of like a comment off the top of my head, but like people are just assuming things based off of like what you're showing them, which is fair. It's completely fair, right? But it's like, I don't know, someone was talking about like, I'm trying to think of just like a good example.
Maybe you got the food thing wrong or whatever
Yeah,
you're
like,
saying
like,
in
like
the script.
maybe it's like, oh, you should, the best thing is like, oh, you should try making this one day. But it's like, oh, you would love this. Where it's like, oh, I actually made a video of that like previously. Or it's like, why do you think I not know that ingredient just because I didn't put it in this, right? It's like, you know, just like some random things. I actually have been meaning to do a video where it's like me responding to like these like ridiculous comments.
Those perform very well.
Yeah, they do, but that's a very content curating video that like
Yeah.
requires actual editing.
You're a simple guy, as we talked about.
I'm very simple. But there are videos where I have tried doing some, you know, more than just normal, like supercuts. But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
really cool.
It's funny. Yeah, people assume things.
What
Not
do
saying
you?
it's a bad thing.
No. I mean,
Yeah.
are you the type to read your comments, or not?
I read my comments. It's funny. It's actually very, very funny. So my wife reads all my comments.
That's a good idea. That's a great
no,
idea.
but like not because I tell her to, but she just does it naturally.
Okay.
And she sometimes gets like worked up about like the comments, like, oh, you need to respond to this person because this person said X,
Damn.
Y, Z. And
Okay.
like, but for me, I don't read my comments because I'm nervous about like what the comments could be. Well, like I don't read them immediately, right? But then like I'm like, okay, I need to rip this Band-Aid off. I'm thinking about not reading it, which means like I should just read it to like
Just read
get
it
over
anyway, yeah.
But then whenever I read my comments, I realize I don't give a shit. So it's like I don't know why I'm worrying because like no matter what the comment is, I actually just like don't care. Like
Yeah, that's a
if-
superpower.
yeah, if someone's like very nice, like I'll be like, oh, thank you so much, blah blah blah. And like if someone like says something like out of pocket, like I'll just respond like kind of like, you know, snarky or funny, but like I really just don't care what people say from like a negative perspective when it comes to like my videos, because I know like I'm not like the highest quality cook. I know like what I can and can't do. You know, from a astrology sign thing, I'm a Virgo, right? And so Virgos are the most
shout out.
self-critical. So I know what you're gonna say before you say it.
Amazing.
But
Well,
no, outside of that, just like it's weird because like I think I would care more, but when I read the comments, I'm like, that's funny, like you like roasting me is funny, or it's like I actually just don't care.
damn, that's a superpower. Give me some of that. I care too much sometimes.
Check care less, man.
Well, speaking of, going back to the dirty water,
Yeah.
when you think about like 2 to 3 years out, what do you hope dirty water will be?
So, people have asked me, it's like, oh, you're going to do a different flavor. You're going to do like, what is it? Like, yes, I want to do more things than just, so right now the vision is just to create that staple hard seltzer, right? That staple go-to clear classic hard seltzer. And that may take a couple of years to build out that brand vision. And the last thing I want to do is kind of come up with a flavor that's like too soon, where it's like, oh, like what flavor do you like? Like, and the way I'll bring it back to is Coke, right? Coke has flavors, right? Coke has like vanilla, cherry Coke, and all these things. But if you ask for a Coke, you know what you're getting, right? If you say, oh, can I get a Coke? You think of that one thing. And so I want to make sure that I establish that of like, oh, can I get a dirty water? And you're getting that one thing before I come out with anything else that could jeopardize that brand vision, right? I do want to come out with like, yeah, maybe like canned cocktails, non-alcoholic beverages, maybe do like a flavor pack in the future. I definitely want to do different cans. Like I want to do glass bottles. Right now, Topo Chico's the only one doing glass bottles, but I want to do glass bottles, like different packaging, things like that, different pack sizing between like 12 and 30 rack. Yeah, there's like a lot of things that I would love to do for Dirty Water, but there's first thing first, which is making sure my vision is very clear and cannot be misinterpreted.
Yeah, well, I hope that people, I hope you could, I mean, you kind of have the PMF ready, or sorry, product market fit. So bring it to the West Coast. I will do my best to, to promote it. And this was fun, man. I hope, I hope people get to learn a little bit about your product and got to learn you got a pretty good following on TikTok. So hopefully people got to learn about you a little bit. Where can people find you?
So people can find me on TikTok at Dominier, Dommelier on TikTok, or follow Dirty Water Hard Seltzer on Instagram. Please type it in because I need to get my SEO up.
Sorry, I cut you off there. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was going to say, so, when it does become readily available, I expect to see, when you do like your live things, to see a Dirty Water like straight, like right in front of you. Like, and then maybe a poster in the background. Maybe like a cardboard cutout of me and a can. But yeah, I expect to see all of that in your podcast in the future.
So being in the paid social world, I'll give you a little ad format that's been working recently.
Tell me.
What you want to do is, if you decide to do advertising, get your can, put some really cool messaging on a sticky note, and then just put that together, and it sells. I'm telling you, it's pretty crazy. Like, you just put some, like, I don't know, whatever ad angle you want here, put it here, and it's going back to what you said of it being kind of raw and organic. For some reason, they call them ugly ads, but it works really well. So
hey, that sounds amazing.
I'll give you a little tip.
I like the low budget.
Lo-fi.
Yeah. The lo-fi approach. Perfect. No, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for hopping on, man. Is there anything you want to leave people with? People that want to start their own brand or want to be an entrepreneur, or anything you want to share about your journey?
For sure. It's going to be cliche, but just start it, right? Like, just whatever that first thing is that, like, so what is it? Analysis paralysis is like the death of all ideas, right? And, it just requires you just putting the first, pen to paper, getting that first phone call going, right? And then after that, every other phone call after that's easy, right? Getting that first quote, like doing the first blog post, right? Just getting yourself out there, trying it. That's easy. That's the hardest part. And then everything else will follow. And if it's something you really, truly like want to do, like the bad stuff, like the tough stuff is going to feel fun too, because now you're learning, right? Mm-hmm. You're learning, and you can only get to the really fun stuff when you've kind of, gone through everything else. But as someone who has failed and multiple times, but has learned multiple times, just make sure that it's something that you actually truly believe in, right? And even if that does mean like set on it and forget it for like maybe, a few weeks, even up to like a year. For me, in my case, it was like multiple years. And you come back to it and you still love the idea, then it was meant to be. And then you have to do it. Like, you literally have to do it.
And for those that want to be a TikTok creator, like Dominic, any advice?
Just post anything. And just post a lot.
Yeah.
You'll get views. Just post anything, post a lot. Don't even be consistent. Just post like the most random
Just fucking do it. Dude, it always shocks me when people just out of nowhere.
Easy.
Like, they just blow up,
Yeah. But like some people, like you see their first video, it gets like X amount of views, and you're like, I'm here early because this person's going to be huge. Like, it's so funny to see.
Yeah, they just have the personality for it.
Yeah, like you could actually really pinpoint that someone's going to be big on TikTok, which is very different because they come in all shapes and sizes. But you just have like the vibe. Like, you can get the vibe from a person.
Do you have like one person that you think about when you say that?
There's this one dude, I think about it actually, because I was there for like his first or second video, and it's just a dude that like, he cooks. I think like he might be college, post-college.
Yeah.
But like he doesn't cook. I'm not gonna say he doesn't cook well, but like he cooks like a college guy, like a guy in college.
Sure.
But like the biggest thing is like even though he's cooking, the cooking comes second, and he's like just like telling stories while he's cooking. He's using wired headphones. I really wish I remembered his name, but like.
If you do, let me know. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, but yeah, that was one of the things where I was like, oh, this guy's gonna be huge.
Nice. It's like investing in talent.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Dom, man, this is fun. I
Mark,
appreciate.
thank you.
Yeah, man. And I'm excited to see where Dirty Water goes.
It's
I
only
had a
gonna go
couple
up.
drinks here, and
It's only gonna go
I
up.
gotta take yeah. I got my bladder is kind of big, so I gotta take a piss after this. But I appreciate you hopping on, man. And
Of course, thank you so much.
I'll let you know when I'm in New York again. Let me know when you're in the Bay. Well, I'll grab you a
100%.
drink.
Thank you. Hopefully, it'll be Dirty Water. Actually, hopefully, it's not that far away, in one way or another. But yeah.
When it's in the
Sooner
West
than later.
Coast, let me know, man.
Sooner than later, yeah. All right, man.
All right, brother. Catch you later.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Hey, thanks for checking out the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just type in Millennial Method podcast. Should show up. That's where I post all the video content. But if you want the audio version, make sure to check out Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That's where I post these episodes. And as always, I truly appreciate you listening. And I hope you have a happy and healthy and wealthy life.